I feel like a lot of people don't know about this.
Anything and everything you could imagine as health problem might get aggravated by climate change.
A
right?
huge amount of data, and that's for the whole world.
That's for the whole world.
Climate change has a huge impact on our health.
58% of all the human infectious diseases in the world are aggravated by climate change.
I don't think anyone can link it to health problems.
In the Himalayan region, malaria was not there, dengue was not there previously in high
It's
altitude.
getting warmer.
It's getting warmer, collection
Stagnant
of water.
water.
Mosquitoes will
Breathe.
breed. Outbreak will happen.
How does it directly impact our health?
Temperature, humidity and rainfall, they influence the life cycle and biting behavior of these mosquitoes.
What do you think the general population can do to avoid climate change?
It was very important to establish globally that health is the face of climate change.
From treating thousands of patients to building global disease prediction systems, Dr. Kaushik Sarkar now leads one of India's top AI excellence centers. He's the rare voice who links medicine, data, and climate change. Today, he's going to debunk how AI can predict outbreaks and why a warming planet is becoming our biggest health risk.
So I want to know what exactly motivated you from becoming a doctor to getting into data science. When in your life was that turning point where you were like, no, I want to get into data science?
I really feel that medicine should be evidence driven.
You're right.
Because there is, of course, a need of standardizing treatment and their outcomes. So then you know that at the mass level, if you provide this standard, you are getting out this, or rather getting this particular outcome, and you are benefiting the whole mass. So you think from the population perspective. So that's why my doctoral was in population medicine. I did a lot of work in terms of, connecting maths to medicine. So it's data to medicine. So the moment you make it connect it with data, you really understand the impact of your work. So it's the entire world is today results driven, because when you are focused towards results, you need the information about the result. The moment you are there, so it's basically that moment.
And the result is what gives you the proof that this is what is working and this is what is not working.
Data is going to give you that proof.
Yeah, like the result that you derive from the data is going to give you that proof that, okay.
And there is another thing.
What?
Data has a power of communication. I was telling you about communication.
Right.
So yesterday, if I tell you that this world has a huge computing power. Now, what is huge? That's a very subjective thing.
Subjective number.
So amount of data that is getting generated is equivalent to, the stack of books from Earth to Pluto and back. That's the amount, and with room to spare. So now you can have that understanding that, hey, is this huge?
That is huge.
That's huge.
A
right?
huge amount of data, and that's for the whole world.
That's for the whole world. Yeah, we are generating zettabytes of data. So
Zettabytes.
a zettabyte is basically, a megabyte is basically a 400-page novel only in text data.
Right.
So it doesn't contain any image or other thing. Image sizes are very different, right?
Right.
And only text and characters, black and white thing in a single book, 400 pages, 1 megabyte. A zettabyte would be you can stretch that stack of books from Earth to Pluto and back. Those numbers books will become 1 zettabyte. That is the information that we are generating today.
And that's without images?
No. Images, that's with all the images, videos and everything. So it includes practically everything. And it is because of these, creative data like videos, images. For me, everything is like data.
Right.
Image is basically what? Pixels. So those are those square boxes.
Yeah.
The numbers, three different numbers, right? That the number codes that you will see for each of those images.
That's very interesting. So that's what, how did you think that, okay, data it is? How did you nail down on that?
Yeah. So we try to think very objectively.
Right.
So objective thinking means when I'm saying that we are benefiting a particular community or we are benefiting a particular population. What do we mean by that? Benefiting means what? And because resources in this world are always constrained. Resources are not infinite.
Yeah.
So if we are spending on something, the overall social returns of investment should be very objectively measured. Similarly, when you are trying to change people's behavior, so how do you communicate that? If you tell a person who is, let's say, a smoker, or let's say an obese person who loves to eat, how do you convince that person that don't take a fast food? You have to provide the numbers.
Facts.
Those facts people love facts. The facts told in a way that touches people's heart. You have to win the people's heart to change their behavior, and you have to get into the truth or the facts. And then they will decide. If someone is not deciding even after that, that's personal choice or something else.
So what is it exactly that your work entails? What sort of...
Right now, I'm completely focused at the intersection of global health, climate change, and data and technology. So I'm the director of the Institute for Health Modeling and Climate Solutions. The abbreviation is IMAX, and it's a global center of excellence that sits within Malaria No More under an initiative called Forecasting Healthy Futures. And it is fully supported by Reaching the Last Mile of UAE, which is from the President's Court of UAE. That support is offered through the Reaching the Last Mile. So I lead that center as its inaugural director. And what our center does at this point of time is we have 3 strategic verticals. The first one is we are focused on advancing novel digital solutions to address the most pressing challenges at the intersection of climate change and health. The second is we have a group of scientists, a community of practice of them from 18 plus countries, I think 18 countries now. So they are all experts in this nexus of climate and health. They have developed early warning systems in some parts of the world. So they know this subject very well. So they bring the knowledge base. And then the third vertical is we provide country assistance, helping the countries in developing strategies, in how they will, based on the existing information and data, how they are going to solve the climate-driven health challenges at this point. That's what I do at this point of time.
What are the climate-driven health challenges?
Anything and everything you could imagine as health problem might get aggravated by climate change. Most importantly, I think, let me give an example.
Yeah.
So we know about infections. In 2022, an article was published in Nature that said that 58% of all the human infectious diseases in the world are aggravated by climate change. So that's more than half of the infectious diseases. And that includes practically all the most pressing or most urgent infectious diseases, like pneumonia, like influenza, like malaria, vector-borne diseases, dengue. All of these are diarrheal diseases. So they are climate-sensitive diseases. Climate change affects the transmission of these diseases a lot.
I feel like a lot of people don't know about
This part?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people don't know about this. There's very little awareness that climate change has such a huge impact on our health. I mean, we see climate change as something for sustainability and all of that, but I don't think I've never seen anyone link it to health problems. So if you can expand on that and help us explain how exactly that works. Like, can you give me an example of what disease you did talk about the diseases, but how does it directly impact our health?
Let's take 2 different types of diseases. So let's say mosquito-borne diseases.
Right.
Malaria, dengue, these diseases are transmitted by mosquitoes. Now, the entire life cycle of mosquitoes. So how does the transmission? So whether it is a virus or a parasite or something, mosquitoes bite us and then they will bite someone else and they become a mediator. Right? Now, so it's basically the entire spread depends on their biting behavior and the density or the population density of those mosquitoes.
Yeah.
Temperature, humidity, and rainfall. these are the three main things. There are many other factors. I'm super simplifying it at this
Yeah.
point. So temperature, humidity, and rainfall, and other meteorological factors, they influence the life cycle and the population as well as biting behavior of these mosquitoes. So what happens if temperature change? So let's say in the Himalayan region, malaria was not there, dengue was not there previously, but you will hear large upsurges of dengue now even happening in Nepal and other similar other countries. So why is that happening in high
Because they're
altitude?
getting warmer.
It's getting warmer. In that, it's getting into that zone or range of temperature where they can live and thrive. So the disease is geographically expanding. That is one.
Right.
Second is you are seeing a lot of these. You have heard of these flash floods, sudden huge rainfall pattern
Yeah.
that are happening, right? Now what happens is there is a semi-arid area. Now a huge rainfall happens. The water management system is according, and then there is a collection of water.
Stagnant water.
Mosquitoes will breed,
Yeah.
and new outbreak will happen. So you don't know when. So the uncertainties of the outbreak is increasing, and similarly, we are also seeing during winter a lot of rainfalls.
Mhm.
So if the vector density increases, mosquito density increases, of course the disease spread will automatically increase. So the overall spread is
Even in the
becoming
winter?
even in the winter there are peaks happening in certain parts of the world, and previously there is, you might have heard of that. It's called vivax malaria. Malaria is of two types: Plasmodium falciparum and Plasmodium vivax malaria. So vivax malaria used to be called Asian malaria. It happens more here. Even this type of malaria is getting into the African countries, which was not previous. It was primarily a different type of malaria. So within diseases, these variations are happening.
So then there'll be a lot of cross-pollination of diseases
yeah,
also.
yeah.
And then,
And this, you have heard of this Chennai flood, right?
yeah.
So you will, in the news, you will even hear about diseases which you haven't heard of in your lifetime, like melioidosis. Have you heard of that disease?
No, I haven't.
But when there is a flood and these diseases are emerging, so these are emerging infectious diseases that are affecting life. In the African countries, there is Rift Valley fever, so that affects people. Schistosomiasis is widespread, but then it affects, it is transmitted. So these are all neglected tropical diseases are there, which are affecting people. They are aggravated by climate factors. And then the diarrheal illnesses.
Mhm.
So cholera, it's like linked to the plankton booms. So when the planktons increase, it is supposed to increase the cholera transmission. It's a very complex mechanism. I won't tell you at this point. It would take some time. But plankton boom is changing because of the weather change or climate change. So it is so complex, the overall pathway, that it is really becoming very hard for humanity to define that, what is going to be the overall burden of these diseases. We can just estimate. That's why, data is really important here.
Right.
Data about population dynamics, data about land use, land cover, water. You practically need the world environment data and health data together to address these problems.
That's really interesting.
By to 2070, there is a prediction I was reading.
Mm-hmm.
The seasons of transmission of or spread of these diseases are going to increase by months. So like if it is happening for 3 months, you are finding that okay, dengue will happen in the. हम लोग जब छोटे थे तो our parents used to tell us, right, that
इस टाइम
this
पे
is the
मच्छर
time.
होते हैं.
Hmm.
हाँ.
So now that those number of months are increasing, so that's going to be difficult for us. It was very important to establish globally that health is the face of climate change. So why is climate change important? Is it that it's going to affect agriculture only or water only? At the end of the day, it is about your health and your survival.
That's true.
So health is basically the human face of climate change. So we had many people right now in today's world say that, health is human face of climate change. So I think these are, really important messages for the world,
That
which are
is,
game changing.
that's right. Do you think our government is doing enough to?
Yeah. Indian government, I would say, is doing a lot. Mission Life, you have seen the program. Putting the overall climate agenda in a mission mode is not something which is small. And they have really expanded the mission. It's a multi-ministerial kind of mission approach that India has at this point of time. And the way India is building or rather protecting its ecosystems, favoring nature-based solutions, moving towards renewable energy, moving towards electric vehicles. So these are really definitively bold step towards climate change, addressing the problem. I think the developed world has a lot to do because a lot of greenhouse gas emissions are coming from that part of the world. So they have more actions to be done. But I think for India, what is really important, or even this particular part of the world, which is towards the south of the equator. So there is every prediction that this part will get more affected by the
South India.
climate. I don't want to explicitly use the word global south here, but I say that south of the
Okay.
equator.
Oh, south of the whole equator, of
Yeah,
the whole
yeah.
world. Okay.
Southern part of the whole world, it's kind of getting into for various reasons, and I won't say that I completely understand all of those reasons because those are very complex meteorological reasons. But that's some of the predictions are that these are the parts which are getting more affected. And climate change mitigation is not an overnight task. It's a long time task. You have to continue with that task. So we have to adapt. Now that how to fast track that adaptation, the entire world is right now learning because you haven't seen that problem, right? Earlier you have seen poverty.
Yeah.
Earlier you have seen problems like hunger, illiteracy. But what are these problems? These are decreasing problems. Now you have a bigger global problem in front of you, which is incremental. Humanity is not poised to, address incremental pressures. So we are learning to adapt, and nobody likes to change. So it's very difficult. And that's, I think, is the biggest problem for this country because of our population, because we are wanting to move very fast, develop very fast. We have a very bold vision. So how we, keep pace with that vision, but still adapt well. So I think that's a huge, I would say, challenge, not just for the government, for the industries, for the people in this country altogether.
And I know a lot of people at the base level are also trying their best. Now we see a lot of people, they're buying electric vehicles, and it's, of course, making a difference, whatever difference that they can make to not add to the problem of climate change. But what do you think the general population can do to avoid climate change?
When we were kids, we were taught by our parents about certain behavior, right?
Right.
That when you are leaving your room, turn off the
Switch
switch.
lights.
I think those are the basic things that people can do to reduce energy consumption. One small work can contribute to lesser energy consumption. Many kgs of carbon dioxide are just contributed to the air by flying. So it's huge. I think 255 gram per person per flight is the amount of carbon dioxide per person per flight per kilometer probably. That's the amount of carbon dioxide that is contributed, especially in a short haul flights, if I'm remembering correctly. And those numbers can be here and there. So if you compute it, like if I'm thinking about between Chandigarh and Delhi, it will be like more than 10 kgs of carbon dioxide in one just flight. Why do we need to contribute that if there is not a compelling reason? And then when we talk about data, and a lot of people are getting into digital. When you are doing digital, go green. Just not writing in paper or not wasting paper doesn't mean that we are green. We
Right.
have to learn to become green. We have to learn to use resources efficiently.
Yeah.
Even if you are writing this big email, it will eventually contribute to some storage capacities in the computer, which is coming at the cost of our environment. So from every space, I think we need to be a little more efficient, a little more effective in the way we live.
Do you think people have the mindset to do things like
No,
this?
this will require a lot of work. This will definitely require, because we are telling people that do whatever you need to do for climate change.
Right.
And why we are saying that? Because, and when I say we, I mean the climate community.
Mm-hmm.
I see myself as part of that community now, who are advocating for action against climate change. So, why you need to act on that part was really important, because you don't see temperature rising 2 degrees Celsius in just 2 days notice or 1 day's notice. It's not a sudden shock. Yes, if there is a huge storm, you will say, but even 5 years back, people didn't have the understanding that, extreme weather events or disasters are becoming more frequent. Now they are seeing that if floods are happening almost every year at a huge capacity, so that awareness is coming. But then creating that awareness was necessary. That's why we were creating that awareness. Now it is important to tell people that what they precisely need to do. Now it is important to include it in our children's curriculums.
Yes.
We should teach them, and through them, their families. I think that part of educating is really important for the country to change. We should have that as mandatory in college curriculums or degree courses, and also for the citizens' responsibilities. Every country in this world should make it compulsory that you have to serve towards your environment in certain way and a measurable way.
How should they do that?
Yeah. So we have to first communicate that, create policies around, and then we have to make the community a part of that entire adaptation process. Governments cannot alone do this work.
Of course.
So I think that's one of the big thing. And then the other thing, is what I always say. What you measure, it gets done. It's our Niti Ayog's, I think, point of view.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to measure everything and see that if we are doing something that's really creating an impact. So if we are seeing that something is causing air pollution, so we have to look into, our policies need to be responsive. So let's say air pollution is a big problem in this part of the country. You know that you and I are living in the cities where, really our lungs are
Air
getting
quality
affected.
is really bad.
So I think more bold policy actions could help a lot of people, especially in the northern part. So the state governments who are there in these states, I think they can proactively take up these issues. But then definitely that call has to come from the general population as well. That we want to we want to breathe better air. So when would that come? When they would learn that they are breathing bad air, and they are affecting their lungs.
I think everyone knows that, but they just don't want to do their part in making sure that,
True.
because maybe they think that it's so insignificant that it won't even make a difference to the whole world. Like if I am not switching off the lights, I'm like, maybe it's not even going to make a difference, but we need to know that every drop makes an ocean.
I think we have to educate and motivate people to consider environmental friendly life as a priority. A lot of we burn a lot of things, even stubbles and other things.
Yeah.
We keep on burning garbages. We burn. What can be alternative ways to dispose them? You have to find alternatives. So I think localized strategies, and India is having so much of small scale and medium scale innovations these days. I think we have to encourage the industry also to act on that. It can provide livelihood opportunities, increase economic opportunities for the entire country, and at the same time protect its environment. I think a lot of work is happening, but we now need to turn the focus because the time is very less when the ecosystem will really become very bad.
Makes sense. I also know that you work with AI, artificial intelligence, right? So my question is that AI has been around since 1950s.
Mm-hmm.
How come it's only gotten so popular right now?
See, AI is basically what? Artificial intelligence is basically certain equations, right? The mathematical equations. So, what does a mathematical equation need? It needs data and it needs computing capacity. So, if we look into the amount of data that gets generated in today's world for the last 10-15 years graph, you will see that I think I told you that, we are generating zettabytes of data. So what is a zettabyte? And I told you that also, that a zettabyte is practically a megabyte. If it is a single book, it's Earth to Pluto and back.
Yeah.
If every person on this earth, 8 billion people, they have one calculator, and if they were doing one calculation per second non-stop, day and night, for over 15,000 years, we could have barely matched the entire computing capacity that all the GPUs and TPUs have in this world. That's the computing capacity that we have at this point cumulatively in this world. So we don't just have data, we have ability to compute. It was not there in 1950s. So that's why people used to do a lot of research, but scaling it to a point where you have a software which is dealing with complex analytics and training of these machine learning and deep learning models, it was really difficult. So I think that is one. And then because it was more focused towards that kind of mathematics, it didn't have that bold purpose also. Right? So for any technology, you need to give it a purpose.
That's true.
So for AI also, you need a purpose. And today I really feel that AI must contribute to preempt the threats that climate change is bringing.
How can AI do that?
Preempting the overall threat. In today's AI system, they are basically predictive systems. So prediction, what does prediction means? How does a child learn? So when you are at the age of 1 year, or let's say 6 months, when you first started speaking, so you'd have called everyone like da or ma. So one syllable, one word. That was the word, right? So and it is very funny. I have a couple of kids, and then I watched them growing up. They learn to speak. They learn to work step by step. And how does that happen? When they repeatedly say something, they get corrected, and what they see other people saying. So for example, my daughter calls my wife Didi. Didi means elder sister.
Yeah.
So, and my son also, Didi, because my son calls her Didi. When my daughter was born, she used to listen that this lady is Didi. So she learned that this is Didi. And my son learned it from my brother-in-law.
Okay.
So it's like that learning. AI is same thing. AI model training, machine learning model training. You give it a data, it just looks into, okay, that these are the data points. If these data points are true, then this is the final data point it looks like. So for example, if I say you housing prices, if I give AI housing prices, different attributes like a 3 BHK house, 2 BHK house, and then, this house is built of marble or something else, what is the construct, and so on and so forth. All those parameters are variables. And then I gave it the actual price of those houses. And then I gave such instances and also localities. And then I gave such instances for 100,000 houses. So it will learn from those 100,000 instances that if a house is in this locality of this particular build and has this much of size, so the house has its price between this to this. So the probability is of the price of this house of being, let's say, $100,000 would be this. So it learns in this way. Similarly for climate crisis also, it learns that if the temperature, humidity, rainfall is like this, how much would be the numbers of dengue cases? It can learn.
Oh wow, that's interesting. Have you been able to figure out anything because of AI? Has it made any predictions which have been helpful to your work?
So in Malkangiri district of Odisha, we started a project in 2020 rather. 2019 we are making the plans. In 2020, And we were Malkangiri is a very hard to reach district. You have a lot of marginalities and difficulties, like poverty is huge. Education level needs a lot of improvement there. There are societal challenges that exist, and then the overall land use, land cover, the overall land situation is very difficult district over. And we tried to address the challenge of malaria in that district. So what we were seeing is that after, although the resources were going in and their impact, the same type of effort that were creating results in other district, it was a little on the Malkangiri was a bit resistant to those efforts. The question, of course, will come into your mind that why is this district not responding? I mean, if a person is poor doesn't mean that that person is going to suffer, right? You are giving the resources, and we know that those resources were reaching from the government side. So we tried to understand. And then we found that this district was practically getting into that point where we need predictions about the information. So we started using artificial intelligence, machine learning, and later deep learning models to predict that this much of malaria cases could be anticipated in these particular villages or blocks. And based on that, we started tweaking the interventions. How can you make your interventions hyper-local? So really targeted interventions. If we are sending a health education message, if we are ensuring that the early diagnosis, complete treatment part needs to be strengthened there, where it needs to be happen, because you cannot have a blanket solution in everywhere. So that's how we targeted. There was a 50% reduction in just, I think, 2 or 3 years time of the entire burden of malaria when we made those targeting. Same resources, same routine government interventions. We didn't bring something extra, commodities or something from outside. It was same intervention, just got a bit smarter. And they created huge impact.
And do you think we will ever be able to predict something like COVID or like another pandemic with AI?
Yes. I think the most important part that AI can do is short-term predictions, which it does very well. So let's say a disease starts.
Right.
You saw those initial 3-4 months of COVID, how confused we were. Everyone from decision makers to manufacturers to industry and everyone. Now I think we are even more prepared to get to that prediction. So now I think we can get more robust predictions in terms of if we get a disease today, what it is going to look like in another 3 months. We can get better predictions from them because our predictive capacities have enhanced.
But didn't we have these systems back in the day when COVID actually hit?
We had, but the thing is that, COVID was also a time when the digital boom also was happening. In fact,
it was because of COVID that the digital boom, it all went hand in hand. It was because of COVID that the digital boom actually happened. Yeah. Especially in India, I would say.
Yeah, especially in India, right?
Right.
A lot of digital, everyone was trying to do something like to predict. I think people had that mindset. In 1920s, when pandemic happened, people didn't have these opportunities. Now they had the computers, they had the opportunity. They did that. And because they did that, they now know how to do that. Mm-hmm. That is one. The skills have increased, capacities have increased of the countries. At the same time, we know that we have the knowledge.
Talking about COP28 again, tell us a little bit more about what happened at the conference. Some, innovations or something very interesting that people would like to know about COP28.
Yeah. See, UN Conference of Parties is basically a platform for the world to negotiate. Mm-hmm. That how they are going to contribute to the climate crisis.
Right.
One big thing that we saw as a change in COP last year, 28th Conference of Parties, health was not a very prominent part of COP until 28th Conference of Parties. So I was there in 27th also, I was there in 28th also. So in 27, there was no health day. So in COP, there are specific days, those are thematic days. Now, there was no health day. In 28th Conference of Parties, the health day was there. that is a change in momentum, that people started realizing that health is the human face of climate change. That is one. A lot of health people have started coming into the climate negotiations part, started discussing the health consequences, how we can mitigate the consequences of climate change on human health.
Have you made some really cool innovations in AI?
A lot. I mean,
Tell us about
you have
some.
made that as well. You haven't seen ChatGPT. You have seen ChatGPT.
Everyone has.
Everyone has seen today ChatGPT. But ChatGPT is kind of is becoming the other name of generative AI. So I would say that we are really excited about generative AI. So generative AI has the ability to recreate something based on its learning. I know that there are subtle uses of generative AI like deepfake videos and all,
Mhm.
which are definitely not good for societies. But the positive potential it is showing, it is going to change a lot of things in the world. That is number one in AI. And I think the other piece, which is not too much of visible to general common people, is the decentralization. I would ask you one question. Do you use iPhone or Android?
iPhone.
iPhone. You remember there was a time when probably, I don't exactly remember, 10th or 9th was that face detection thing came. 8, 9 or 10th at some point of time that transition was. Face detection in iPhone came. And it really became fast. So how do you think that your face gets detected through an iPhone?
I don't know.
It's an artificial intelligence model.
Yeah.
It is trained on the images, and that training, and when I say that this is an artificial intelligence model, that's not compelling enough to highlight its power. The more compelling part of its power is that it is decentralized. This particular analysis is happening in your phone, your device. So the world is getting into that space in AI, democratizing AI.
So, talking about data privacy, right? We all store everything on, let's say, Google Drives or iClouds. Do you think it's safe for us to save all this data on these drives? What if tomorrow the country has an issue with the country that owns those drives? Don't you think we'll be at risk then? Our data will be at risk.
See, I can't say that there would be zero risk. There is always a risk. In this world of volatile geopolitics, anything and everything can happen tomorrow. Nobody knows what will happen 30 years later. In the overall geopolitical term, it is very hard to predict. I am not a politician who could say that we would be in a at this level, or political analyst could tell this better than me. But yes, to make it foolproof, I always say that build the infrastructure to localize managed services. And by managed services, especially in the countries, I say this because where you are doing your computations, where you are doing your analytics and data storing, even for individual purposes, I think it is always good to have that kind of control. Right now, we are generating data at a pace which makes it very, I would say, it's not feasible to store everything in a hard disk. It also doesn't always have that, we use, simple example, Facebook photos. Why do you put photos in Facebook? To keep a memory. 5 years later, it will show that, hey, you are doing this thing that day. So those nice things come up. But, we are definitely sharing data, right? Outside. Facebook does have strong data security pathways and all, which they always highlight. But then we are willingly sharing data outside our control. So if that data, for any reason, for any breach goes out, we won't be able to do something with that. It will be very hard for us to do something, or almost impossible. The same thing is true for governments also. The data is there. If we are putting data on somewhere which is outside the country's control,
Drive, yeah.
so if something happens, God forbid, so then it becomes almost impossible. So that's why I say that, a part of getting into the point of self-reliance is also having that localized managed services. The more you innovate within your country, the more you have localized managed services, That is really important. And the other part is the Web3 blockchain technology. Blockchain is incredibly strong in terms of helping ensuring data protection. And in India, in land registration, certificates, there is search chains and others, a lot of blockchain innovations are happening.
Really? Which states?
In a few southern states, I won't name a specific state, but there are blockchain centers, and also blockchain is explicitly being used, especially to, blockchain, right? That it has the capacity of immutable records. So once a transaction has taken place, you cannot change that.
It'll always be imprinted there.
Yeah, once you have agreed that this transaction has taken place and it is correctly approved by a master node or something, so it is immutable record. And that is, once something is immutable, that gives you a lot of transparency because that is in the records.
Right.
So in land and other things, India, several of the Indian states in the southern part of the country especially, they have started making progresses on that front.
What about regulations in AI?
AI regulation, see, we are in a stage of another industrial revolution. AI in itself is an industry. Digital rather, not just AI. The digital rather in itself is an industry at this point. I haven't seen, it was before probably my grandfather's birth, the industrial revolution happened, great-grandfather's birth. But we are seeing one in our lifetime. We are fortunate to do that. And what is happening at this point is when an industry revolution happens, a particular technology or the constellation of technologies, they are in a state of dissonance. Because people will start innovating. Everyone wants to contribute. Everyone is excited about it. So you'll see a lot of contribution from in the mass. So when that happens, there need to be a lot of regulatory pointers, I would say. So you need data protection acts, data security act. You need ethical AI is different from data security. Ethical AI is what AI should be able to do and should not be able to do.
Okay.
For example, this deepfake one, it doesn't have anything to do with data.
Yeah.
Data security, a data security bill cannot prevent deepfakes always.
Okay, yeah.
Right?
That makes sense.
So ethical AI can prevent or AI regulations can prevent. So right now, and even that is general digital regulation. Within the sector, for example, within health sector, globally health AI regulation policies are getting developed. In the finance sector, any other service sector you might think of, AI will be part of those lives or sectors. So you need sector specific even regulations, because one overarching regulation digital would be there, one overarching data protection and privacy rule will be there, but then sector specific laws, rules should be there or regulations should be there. And that is not very easy. For a regulation to get developed, a lot of stakeholders need to agree. It's not just that one person in the government will come up or one person in the UN will come up with a regulation or something. It's basically a group of stakeholders who have that authority in that and governance level, who are at the governance level, need to include private sector and community representatives, and together they will come up with certain regulations. It is also important that those who are representing the mass to create those regulations, they have that understanding of AI as well, the technology.
This was a really, really informative session. I feel like our audience is really going to enjoy our conversation, especially because of all the knowledge that you've imparted. Thank you so much for coming on Debunk with Karuna. We really enjoyed this conversation with you.
Thank you so much for these type of opportunities, communicating these complex messages and asking those questions that can practically reach the right set of people. Thank you so much for asking those questions.
Thank you so much for coming.